number they held him captive. Earth burned the galaxy for him. The stars looked beautiful through the viewing window of the research vessel. Dae Sung stood alone in the observation room, watching the distant lights flicker in the darkness of space. He had dreamed of this moment since he was a child. First contact with an alien species. A chance to represent humanity among the stars. At 28 years old, he was the youngest diplomat ever chosen for such an important mission. The Vrelthian ships approached slowly. 3 massive vessels, each one larger than anything humanity had ever built. Their hulls were covered in strange symbols that glowed with a purple light. Dae Sung felt his heart beating faster. This was it. This was history being made. Captain Richards stood beside him, arms crossed over his chest. The old spacer looked worried. He had seen many things in his 40 years of service, and something about this meeting felt wrong to him. But orders were orders. Earth wanted peace with the Vrelthians. They wanted humanity to have friends in the galaxy. The communication channel opened. A voice came through, harsh and clicking, translated by the computer into words Dae Sung could understand. Commander Thexal introduced himself as the leader of the Vrelthian delegation. He spoke of peace and cooperation. He spoke of a bright future where humans and Vrelthians could share knowledge and resources. Dae Sung smiled. He had practiced his speech 100 times. He activated the communication channel and began to speak. He talked about Earth's desire for friendship. He talked about humanity's dreams of exploring the galaxy together with other peaceful species. He talked about understanding and respect. The meeting seemed to go well. The Vrelthian commander invited Dae Sung to board their flagship for a formal ceremony. Captain Richards objected immediately. It was too dangerous. The Flector, Lofton, radioed, DBPL. They knew nothing about these aliens. But Dae Sung insisted. This was why he was here. To build trust. To show that humans were not afraid. Dae Sung took a shuttle across the empty space between the ships. 2 security officers accompanied him. When they entered the Vrelthian vessel, the air smelled strange. Sweet, but also bitter. The corridors were dark, lit only by those same purple lights. The Vrelthians were tall, nearly 7 feet, with scaled skin that looked like dark leather. Their eyes were yellow and cold. They led Dae Sung to a large chamber. He expected to see decorations, perhaps a feast or some kind of celebration. Their weapons were already raised and pointed at him. Commander Thexal stepped forward. His face showed no emotion. When he spoke, his voice was different now. Cold and hard. Human, Thexal said. You have been deemed a threat to galactic peace. Your species advances too quickly. You are too violent, too unpredictable. The Galactic Council has made its decision. Humanity must be studied before you spread further into the galaxy. Dae Sung felt ice in his stomach. What are you talking about? We came here in peace. We want no conflict with anyone. Peace? Thexal laughed. A horrible clicking sound. Your planet has been at war with itself for thousands of years. You create weapons of mass destruction. You fight over resources, over beliefs, over land. The 2 security officers moved to protect Dae Sung, but they were too slow. Energy weapons fired. The bright blue bolts hit both men in the chest. They fell to the ground, dead before they could even draw their own weapons. Dae Sung tried to run, but strong hands grabbed him from behind. The Vrelthians were too strong. He fought and struggled, but it was useless. Back on the human research vessel, Captain Richards watched in horror. The security cameras in the shuttle had transmitted everything. He saw the execution of his men. He saw Dae Sung being taken prisoner. He immediately ordered his ship to open fire, but the Vrelthian vessels were too powerful. Their shields absorbed every shot from the human weapons. Then, they returned fire. The research vessel didn't stand a chance. Explosions tore through the hull. Systems failed one by one. Captain Richards managed to send one final message back to Earth before the bridge exploded around him. The transmission was simple. They have Dae-sung. The Vrelthians betrayed us. They plan to attack Earth. God help us all. The message traveled across the galaxy at faster than light speed. It reached Earth 3 days later. Admiral Hae-won was in a meeting when the alert came through. She stood up so fast her chair fell backwards. The color drained from her face as she listened to the transmission. That was her brother's voice in the background, screaming as the Vrelthians dragged him away. Her baby brother. The boy she had raised after their parents died. The young man who dreamed of peace among the stars. She played the message 3 times. Each time, her hands gripped the edge of the desk harder. By the 3rd time, her knuckles were white. The Galactic Council sent their own message an hour later. It appeared on every screen, every communication device on Earth. The message was formal and cold. They explained that Dae-sung's capture was necessary for the security of the galaxy. They said humanity was too dangerous to be allowed freedom among the stars. They said Earth must accept this decision. They warned that any attempt to rescue Dae-sung would be met with total war. The entire Galactic Council, 47 species with thousands of warships, would destroy Earth completely. The message ended with a simple statement. Accept this loss. Do not make us destroy you. The United Earth Parliament held an emergency session. Representatives from every nation gathered in Geneva. Some argued for caution. The galaxy was too powerful. Earth was too young, too weak. They had only achieved faster than light travel 15 years ago. How could they fight species that had been traveling the stars for thousands of years? But others argued differently. If they accepted this, if they let the galaxy take one of their own without consequence, what would stop them from taking more? What would stop them from deciding that humanity had no rights at all? Admiral Hae-won stood before the Parliament. Her uniform was crisp and perfect, but her eyes burned with barely controlled rage. When she spoke, her voice was quiet, but everyone heard every word. They took my brother, she said. They murdered his crew. They threaten our world with destruction if we dare to defend ourselves. They believe we will bow. They believe we will accept this injustice because we are afraid. She paused, looking at each representative in turn, but they have made a mistake. They have never seen humanity united. They have never seen what we become when we are truly angry. For thousands of years, we fought each other. We were divided by nations, by beliefs, by resources. But now, for the first time in human history, we have a common enemy. Now, they will learn what it means to make an enemy of Earth. The vote was unanimous. Every nation on Earth agreed. Every colony on Mars, on Luna, on the stations orbiting Jupiter. Humanity spoke with one voice. They would go to war. They would rescue Dae-sung. And they would teach the galaxy a lesson it would never forget. The message Earth sent back to the Galactic Council was short. Return him, or burn. Number they held him captive. Earth burned the galaxy for him. Taemin had worked at the lunar shipyards for 6 years. He built civilian vessels, cargo ships that carried supplies between Earth and the colonies. It was honest work, peaceful work. He liked that. He had seen enough war in history books and never wanted to experience it himself. But that changed the day after Dae-sung was captured. Taemin arrived at work to find everything different. Military officers were everywhere. His supervisor, an older woman named Park, called everyone into the main assembly hall. Thousands of workers gathered, confused and worried. Park's voice shook as she explained what had happened. The Vrelthians had taken a human prisoner. The galaxy threatened Earth with destruction. War was coming. All civilian projects are cancelled, Park said. As of now, we build warships. Nothing else matters. Taemin watched as construction drones he had programmed to build peaceful cargo vessels now assembled weapons of war. The shipyards worked around the clock. Workers came in shifts that lasted 16 hours. Nobody complained. Nobody asked for rest. They all understood what was at stake. Earth's factories transformed overnight. Car manufacturers built tanks. Electronics companies produced targeting systems. Every resource, every factory, every skilled worker turned toward one single purpose: war. But this would not be a war like the ones humanity had fought among themselves. This time, they faced an enemy that had traveled the stars for thousands of years, an enemy with technology far beyond anything Earth possessed. An enemy that believed humans were primitive and weak. Commander Byung-ho stood on the bridge of his new flagship, the EDF Retribution. He was 52 years old, a veteran of the Mars Rebellion 20 years earlier. He had hoped to retire soon, to spend time with his grandchildren. But when the call came, he answered without hesitation. His fleet consisted of 300 warships. They were new, built in just 48 hours using emergency protocols. They were not as elegant as the alien vessels. They did not have the powerful shields or the advanced energy weapons. But they had something else. They had human engineering, designed for one purpose: to kill efficiently. The briefing room was crowded with captains and tactical officers. Byung-ho displayed a star map showing their target: the Kelris Trading Hub, a massive space station where thousands of species conducted business. It was neutral territory, protected by ancient treaties. But the Vrelthians had a garrison there. 200 soldiers and a dozen warships. "Our mission is simple," Byung-ho said. "We destroy the Vrelthian presence at Kelris. We send a message to the galaxy. Return Daesung, or we burn everything you have." A young captain raised her hand. "Sir, Kelris is neutral territory. If we attack there, we violate 100 treaties. The entire galaxy will turn against us." Byung-ho looked at her with cold eyes. "The entire galaxy is already against us. They threaten to destroy Earth. They hold one of our own prisoner. Treaties mean nothing to those who break them first." The fleet departed 3 hours later. The journey to Kelris took 2 days using Earth's new quantum tunnel drives. Dr. Sujin had worked without sleep for a week to perfect the technology. She combined human innovation with captured alien designs, creating something neither species could achieve alone. The new drives could cross the galaxy in hours instead of weeks. When the human fleet emerged near Kelris, alarms blared across the station. The Vrelthians scrambled to their ships, but they were too slow. Byung-ho gave them 30 minutes to evacuate the station. Many species fled immediately, but the Vrelthians refused. They believed their superior technology would protect them. They believed humans were too primitive to pose a real threat. They were wrong. The battle began with humanity's opening strike. 1,000 small drones, each no larger than a car, swarmed toward the Vrelthian warships. The aliens laughed. Their point defense systems could easily destroy such simple machines. They opened fire with energy weapons, destroying hundreds of drones in seconds. But there were always more. The drones kept coming, wave after wave. The Vrelthian systems began to overheat. Their weapons needed time to recharge, and in those brief seconds of vulnerability, the drones struck. They crashed into the ship's hulls, detonating nuclear charges. The Vrelthians had never encountered nuclear weapons used in space combat. Their shields were designed to deflect energy weapons, not contain atomic explosions. The first warship exploded, torn apart from within, then the second, then the third. The Vrelthian commander tried to retreat, but Byung-ho had anticipated this. Human stealth ships, invisible to alien sensors, had positioned themselves behind the enemy fleet. They fired railguns, simple kinetic weapons that accelerated metal slugs to incredible speeds. The slugs punched through shields and armor like paper. The battle lasted 4 hours. Every Vrelthian ship was destroyed. Their garrison on Kelris was eliminated. Human casualties were high, 73 ships destroyed. But they had won. Byung-ho broadcast a message across all galactic communication channels. Every species heard his words. The Vrelthian Consortium has 10 solar cycles to return Daesung. If they refuse, we will burn every Vrelthian world. This is not a threat. This is a promise. Humanity does not negotiate with kidnappers. We do not bow to threats. Return our brother, or face extinction. The galaxy listened in shock. This young species, barely 15 years into space travel, had just destroyed a Vrelthian battle group. It should have been impossible. Back on Earth, Dr. Ji-woo worked in her laboratory beneath the mountains of Korea. She studied every piece of Vrelthian technology they could recover from the battle. She needed to find where they were holding Daesung. The galaxy was enormous. Millions of worlds. He could be anywhere. She worked for 3 days without sleep. Her team analyzed communication intercepts, patrol patterns, supply routes. Slowly, a picture emerged. The Vrelthians had a facility that nobody talked about, a place where they studied dangerous species, a prison that appeared on no maps. They called it the Black Citadel. Ji-woo discovered its location hidden in encrypted military transmissions. The facility existed in the Vrelthian home system, protected by 200 warships and thousands of automated defense platforms. It was designed to be impenetrable. No force in the galaxy could break through its defenses, but humanity had never cared much about what was supposed to be impossible. Meanwhile, Daesung suffered in his cell. The Vrelthians studied him like an animal. They took samples of his blood, his skin, his organs. They tested his limits, seeing how much pain a human could endure. Commander Thexal visited often, taunting him. "Your species has forgotten you already," Thexal said. "We intercepted their communications. They discuss peace negotiations. They will sacrifice you to save themselves. This is the nature of weak species." Daesung hung from chains attached to the ceiling. His body was covered in wounds. But he managed to look up at his captor. Blood dripped from his mouth as he smiled. "You don't understand humans at all," he whispered. "We never forget. We never forgive. And we never abandon our own. They are coming for me. And when they arrive, you will learn what it means to make humanity angry." Thexal laughed. "Let them come. We have the entire Galactic Council behind us. 47 species, thousands of worlds, millions of ships. Your primitive species will be crushed. Maybe," Daesung said. "But we will take you with us. Every single one of you." Deep in space, Admiral Haewon reviewed the tactical reports. Ji-woo had found her brother. The Black Citadel was heavily defended. But she had a plan. A desperate plan. A plan that would cost thousands of lives. But Daesung was worth it. Every human life was worth it. She gave the order. The fleet would mobilize. 500 warships, 10,000 support craft, 1,000,000 combat drones. They would assault the Black Citadel. They would rescue Daesung. And if they had to burn the entire Vrelthian species to ash to do it, then so be it. Number. They held him captive. Earth burned the galaxy for him. High Arbiter Kelmoth had lived for 600 years. He had seen civilizations rise and fall. He had negotiated peace treaties between species that had warred for millennia. He had witnessed the birth of new stars and the death of old worlds. In all his long life, he had never seen anything like humanity. The Galactic Council chamber was in chaos. Representatives from 47 species shouted at each other. Some demanded immediate action against Earth. Others argued for negotiation. Fear filled the air like a poison. Kelmoth raised one of his forearms, calling for silence. His species, the Korvathi, were the oldest in the known galaxy. They had guided the Council for 3,000 years. When he spoke, others listened. "The human species must be contained," he announced. They have violated the Kelris Accords. They have committed acts of war against a council member. They refuse all diplomatic solutions. We have no choice but to mobilize the Galactic Peacekeeping Armada. The vote was swift. 40 species pledged their fleets. Only 7 abstained, too frightened to choose a side. The Peacekeeping Armada had not been assembled in over 2 centuries. The last time was to stop the Crethean Empire from consuming half the galaxy. Now it would be used against a species that had achieved faster-than-light travel only 15 years ago. 8,000 warships began converging on human space. It was the largest military force ever assembled. Enough firepower to sterilize 100 worlds. Earth's 300 warships would be crushed like insects. But Kelmoth felt uneasy. Something about the humans worried him. They did not behave like other species. When faced with overwhelming force, most civilizations surrendered. They chose survival over pride. But these humans seemed to choose differently. On Earth, General Sungmin studied the tactical displays. The Galactic Armada would arrive in 6 days. His analysts predicted total defeat. Every simulation showed the same result: Earth's destruction. But Sungmin smiled. The analysts were thinking like aliens. They assumed humanity would fight a defensive battle, protecting their homeworld. They assumed humans valued survival above all else. They were wrong. Implement Operation Scorched Path, Sungmin ordered. His staff stared at him in shock. Operation Scorched Path was designed as a last resort. It called for simultaneous strikes across 36 systems, not military targets. Infrastructure, the soft underbelly of galactic civilization. While the massive Galactic Armada lumbered toward Earth, human ships spread across the galaxy like a plague. Captain Min Su led the Special Forces operations. His teams had trained for months in secret. They used captured alien vessels to infiltrate core worlds. They looked like traders, like merchants, like refugees, fleeing the war. Nobody suspected them until it was too late. On the trade world of Nexus 7, Min Su's team poisoned the water supply. Millions fell ill. The planetary government collapsed into chaos. On the manufacturing world of Forge Prime, they sabotaged the fusion reactors. Half the planet went dark. On communication relay stations throughout the galaxy, they planted viruses that corrupted data and destroyed equipment. The galaxy's interconnected nature became its greatest weakness. Species had grown comfortable, dependent on their technology and infrastructure. They had forgotten what real war looked like. They waged conflicts with rules and honor and restraint. Humans remembered a different kind of war: total war. War where nothing was sacred and everything was a target. Engineer Su Jin worked without rest in the Mars shipyards. Her quantum tunnel drives had given humanity an advantage. But it was not enough. They needed something more. Something that would give them an edge against impossible odds. She found it in the recovered Vrelthian data. The aliens had been studying something called singularity weapons. Devices that could tear apart the fabric of space itself. The technology was banned by every civilized species. Too dangerous. Too unpredictable. Sujin built them anyway. The Galactic Armada finally arrived at the edge of human space. Admiral Vex Thor, of the Korvathi, commanded the fleet. He expected to find Earth's forces waiting, ready for a desperate last stand. Instead, he found an empty system. Well, not completely empty. The humans had left surprises. The first wave of ships hit the minefield. Explosions rippled through the formation. Nuclear mines detonated, their electromagnetic pulses disabling shields and sensors. Automated defense platforms emerged from stealth, firing kinetic weapons that tore through hulls. Thousands died in the first hour. Admiral Vex Thor called for his fleet to regroup. They would clear the defenses methodically, carefully. They had time. Earth was not going anywhere. But 300 light-years away, the real human fleet appeared in Vrelthian space. Commander Byung-ho stood on the bridge of the EDF Retribution. Around him, 500 warships dropped out of quantum tunnels. The Vrelthian home fleet scrambled to respond. But they were unprepared. Most of their forces had been sent to join the Galactic Armada. Only 100 warships remained to defend their homeworld. The battle that followed would be remembered as the burning of Vex Prime. Byung-ho unleashed everything humanity had built. 10,000 combat drones swarmed forward. The Vrelthians destroyed them by the hundreds, but there were always more. Behind the drones came the main fleet, firing railguns and missiles. Behind them came the stealth ships, striking from unexpected angles. The Vrelthians fought with skill and courage. Their weapons were superior, their shields stronger. But humanity fought with something they could not match: absolute determination. When human ships were damaged beyond repair, their crews did not abandon them. They set course for Vrelthian vessels and crashed into them at full speed. The Vrelthian admiral watched in horror as a human cruiser, its hull torn open and leaking atmosphere, accelerated toward his flagship. He tried to shoot it down, but too many drones obscured his targeting systems. The cruiser hit the flagship's shields at nearly light speed. The shields held for almost 3 seconds. Then, they collapsed. The impact sent debris across 1,000 kilometers of space. The battle raged for 18 hours. By the end, every Vrelthian warship was destroyed. Orbital stations burned. Defense platforms floated as lifeless debris. The Black Citadel stood alone, its automated systems the only thing still functioning. Back at the Galactic Council, Kelmoth received reports of the disaster. He felt fear for the first time in centuries. The humans had not defended Earth. They had attacked the enemy's home. They had sacrificed their homeworld's defense to strike where it would hurt most. They are not fighting to win, his tactical advisor said. They are fighting to inflict maximum damage before they die. Kelmoth understood then. Humans did not wage war for territory or resources. They waged war for revenge, for justice, for principles that other species had forgotten. He sent an emergency message to Earth. The Galactic Council offered immediate peace. They would order the Vrelthians to release Daesung. They would withdraw all forces. They would grant humanity whatever they desired. The message was marked urgent. Priority 1. It arrived at Earth's military headquarters within minutes. General Sung-min read it. Then, he deleted it without responding. The Galactic Armada, still fighting through the minefields around Earth, received new orders. Withdraw immediately. Return to home systems. Protect core worlds from human attacks. Admiral Vexthor could not believe it. They had humanity trapped. Yes, they had lost thousands of ships to the defenses, but they still outnumbered the humans 100 to 1. One final push would end this war. But his orders were clear. The Council feared that if the Armada destroyed Earth, the humans would destroy everything else. Better to have one enemy civilization than to lose a dozen core worlds. The Armada began its withdrawal. They left the human system, confused and frustrated. They did not understand. Humanity had already won, not through superior technology, not through better tactics. They won because they were willing to pay any price, sacrifice anything, to protect one of their own. In his cell at the Black Citadel, Daesung felt the station shake. Explosions echoed through the walls. His captors ran past his cell, shouting in panic. Commander Thexal appeared one last time. His scales were pale with fear. "You were right," Thexal whispered. "They came for you. Your species is insane." Daesung smiled through his pain. "No, we are just human. They held him captive. Earth burned the galaxy for him." The Black Citadel was built into an asteroid the size of a small moon. Its walls were made of materials stronger than anything found in nature. Its shields could withstand the explosion of a star. 10,000 automated defense platforms surrounded it, each one capable of destroying a battleship in seconds. The Vrelthians had designed it to be the most secure facility in the galaxy. They had never imagined someone would be crazy enough to attack it. Admiral Hay-1 arrived with the Second Retribution Fleet. Fresh ships from Earth's shipyards joined Commander Byung-ho's battered vessels. Together, they formed a force of 800 warships, facing an impossible fortress. Any sane military commander would have called for a siege. Starve the station out. Wait for surrender. But Hay-1 was done waiting. Her brother was inside that fortress. Every minute he remained a prisoner was another minute of torture, of suffering. She had seen the medical reports from captured Vrelthian databases, the experiments they performed, the pain they inflicted. She stood on the bridge of her flagship, the EDF Vengeance. Around her, the command crew worked in silence. They all knew what was coming. Many of them would die in the next few hours, but nobody questioned the orders. All ships, Hay-1 said into the fleet-wide channel. This is Admiral Hay-1. We have come to the end of our journey. Behind those defenses is Dae-sung, our brother, our friend, our reminder of why we fight. The Vrelthians believe this fortress cannot be breached. Today, we prove them wrong. For Dae-sung, for humanity, for everyone we have ever loved. The response came from 800 ships at once. For Dae-sung, the assault began. Human ships charged forward in waves. The defense platforms opened fire immediately. Energy beams turned space into a light show of death. The first wave of ships, older vessels with volunteer crews, lasted only minutes. They were obliterated. But they drew fire. They forced the platforms to reveal their positions and capabilities. The second wave came in low, using the asteroid's mass to shield themselves. They fired kinetic weapons at the platforms, destroying dozens before they were targeted. The third wave carried electronic warfare systems, jamming targeting sensors and creating phantom signals. Lieutenant Jae-hyun sat in the cockpit of his shuttle. Around him, 9 other shuttles prepared for launch. Their mission was simple and suicidal. They would fly through the defensive grid while the main fleet kept the platforms busy. They would land on the Citadel and deliver a strike team directly to the docking bay. Jae-hyun was 24 years old. He had a girlfriend back on Earth. They planned to get married after the war. He had written her a letter, just in case. It sat in his locker, sealed and ready to be delivered if he did not return. Reapers, this is Reaper 1, he said into his radio. Stay tight. Follow my lead. And if you see an opening, take it. We are not coming back without Dae-sung. The shuttles launched. They flew through hell. Energy beams cut across space around them. Explosions lit up the darkness. Jae-hyun's hands moved across the controls with desperate precision. His shuttle's stealth system was experimental, barely tested. It made his ship harder to detect, but not invisible. A targeting lock alarm screamed in his ear. He rolled the shuttle, narrowly avoiding a beam that would have cut him in half. Reaper 3 exploded. Then Reaper 5. Jae-hyun did not let himself think about the people inside those shuttles. Friends, comrades. He focused on flying, on surviving just one more second. His shuttle shook as debris from a destroyed warship struck the hull. Red warning lights flashed across his console. The engine was failing. He would not make it to the docking bay. But he could make it close. All Reapers, I am going down. Continue the mission. He aimed his dying shuttle at the Citadel's outer wall, near the docking bay. The impact would breach the hull. It would create an opening. 3 shuttles made it through, following the path he had created. Jae-hyun's shuttle hit the wall at full speed. Everything went black. Sergeant Won-shik led the strike team. 20 soldiers in powered armor, each one trained for months specifically for this mission. They carried weapons that were designed for close combat. Shotguns, plasma cutters, explosive charges, things the galaxy considered barbaric. The Vrelthians had never experienced true close-quarters combat. Won-shik's team breached the Citadel through the hole Jae-hyun's shuttle had created. Alarms blared. Red emergency lights flashed. Vrelthian security forces rushed to stop them. The narrow corridors became killing zones. Human shotguns fired shells that spread in tight patterns, devastating in confined spaces. When the Vrelthians tried to use their energy shields, human plasma cutters burned through them. When they tried to fall back and regroup, explosive charges brought down walls and ceilings. Wonshik was 50 years old. He had fought in every major conflict for the past 30 years. He was tired. His body hurt. But he pushed forward, his armor's servos helping him move with a strength his old muscles could not manage alone. They fought through 3 levels. Vrelthian bodies littered the corridors. Human casualties mounted. 5 soldiers down. Then 8. Then 12. But the survivors kept pushing forward. Outside the citadel, HFY made a decision that would define her legacy. She ordered the deployment of Prometheus warheads. The singularity weapons Sujin had built, weapons that were banned by every civilized species because they were too dangerous, too destructive. Her staff objected. Using such weapons could tear apart local space-time. The effects were unpredictable. But HFY did not care. Her brother was inside that fortress. Every second of delay meant more suffering for him. Fire. The Prometheus warheads streaked through space. When they detonated, reality itself screamed. Artificial, micro-singularities appeared around the defense platforms. Gravity wells formed, crushing the platforms like aluminum cans. Space warped and twisted. The Citadel's shields, designed to stop energy weapons, could not stop gravitational forces that bent the universe. The shields collapsed. Inside, Wonshik's team reached the detention level. The Vrelthian guards had abandoned their posts. They found rows of cells. Most were empty. Some contained aliens Wonshik had never seen before. Other species the Vrelthians had deemed too dangerous to let free. Then they found Dae-sung. He hung from chains in a medical lab. Machines surrounded him, monitoring his vital signs while they extracted samples and conducted experiments. His body was covered in wounds, burns, cuts, places where the Vrelthians had removed tissue for study. But he was alive. Wonshik rushed forward. He used his plasma cutter to break the chains. Dae-sung collapsed into his arms. For a moment, the old sergeant felt tears in his eyes. This man was why they had come, why thousands had died, why they had burned a path across the galaxy. Sir, Wonshik said quietly, we are here to bring you home. Dae-sung's eyes opened. They were filled with pain and exhaustion, but also recognition, also hope. His voice was barely a whisper. You came. I knew you would come. We are human, Wonshik replied. We don't leave family behind. The extraction alarm sounded. Commander Vexal, in a final act of spite, had activated the Citadel's self-destruct sequence. They had minutes to escape. The team carried Dae-sung through the corridors. They ran, while the station shook around them. Explosions echoed behind them. Wonshik called for extraction. Jae-hyun, somehow still alive in his crashed shuttle, managed to get the engines working one more time. He brought the dying vessel back to the docking bay. They loaded Dae-sung aboard. The shuttle launched, just as the detention level exploded behind them. But the engines were failing. They would not make it back to the fleet. From her flagship, HFY watched the shuttle struggle. She saw it falling, its trajectory taking it into the expanding explosion of the Citadel. She gave orders, without hesitation. Helm, full speed ahead. Bring us into the debris field. Her crew stared at her. The debris field was deadly. Flying into it was suicide. But they obeyed. The Vengeance accelerated, its massive hull pushing through destroyed platforms and exploding fragments. The tractor beams locked onto Jae-hyun's shuttle, pulling it to safety, even as debris tore at the flagship's armor. When the shuttle finally docked, HFY ran to the medical bay. She pushed past doctors and nurses. She saw her brother, broken and bleeding, but alive. For the first time since this nightmare began, she let herself cry. She knelt beside the medical bed. She took his hand. "I am sorry," she whispered. "I am sorry it took so long." Daesung managed a weak smile. "You burned the galaxy for me. We would have burned 1,000 galaxies. Number they held him captive. Earth burned the galaxy for him." 3 months had passed since Daesung's rescue. The galaxy was a different place now. The old order, maintained for thousands of years by the Galactic Council, had crumbled like ancient stone. The Vrelthian Consortium no longer existed as a political entity. Their homeworld was under human occupation. Their colonies had been seized. Their fleet was destroyed. The species itself survived, but they were broken, powerless. A warning to others about what happened when you touched humanity. 20 species had withdrawn from the Galactic Council. They were afraid. If the Council could not protect them from one young species, what good was it? 15 other species had opened direct diplomatic channels with Earth, seeking peace treaties and non-aggression pacts. High Arbiter Kelmoth traveled to Earth himself to negotiate. It was the first time in 300 years that a High Arbiter had left the Council's homeworld. He arrived in Geneva, the old diplomatic capital, and found himself facing something unprecedented. President Donghyun met him in a simple conference room. No grand ceremony. No elaborate display. Just 2 leaders sitting across a table from each other. Kelmoth, who had negotiated treaties for 6 centuries, felt strangely nervous. "Your species endangered the entire galactic order for one individual," Kelmoth said, trying to understand. "Do you comprehend how irrational this appears to the Council? How many died for one life?" "See." Donghyun leaned forward. His eyes were hard. "Let me make something clear. We did not go to war for one individual. We went to war because you demonstrated that you believe human lives have no value. You showed us that you think we can be intimidated, bullied, forced to accept injustice for the sake of peace. And now? What does Earth want? We want what we have always wanted. To be left alone to explore, to grow, to live. But understand this, Arbiter. We have long memories. We remember every slight, every threat, every injustice. The galaxy called us unstable. Perhaps we are. But now the galaxy knows what happens when you push humanity too far. The treaty that followed was unlike any in galactic history. Earth did not seek to conquer. They withdrew from Vrelthian space once reparations were paid. They did not claim territory. They did not demand tribute. Instead, they established something new. Something that made every species in the galaxy very nervous. The Daesung Protocol. Ambassador Ji Young presented it to the Galactic Council. The council chamber was full, every species sending representatives. They listened in silence, as she explained. Any human, anywhere in the galaxy, is under Earth's protection. Harm one of our citizens, and humanity will respond with total war. No negotiation, no restraint, no mercy. We will not stop until justice is done, regardless of the cost. That is madness, one representative shouted. You cannot threaten war over every minor incident. Ji Young smiled coldly. We are not threatening. We are promising. And it is not about every incident. It is about the principle. Humanity will not accept a galaxy where our lives have no value, where we can be taken, tortured, killed, without consequence. The Council will never ratify such a doctrine, another representative said. Then we will enforce it without your ratification. The vote came 2 days later. 43 species ratified the Daesung Protocol. Not because they agreed with it, not because they thought it was just, but because they feared what would happen if they did not. They had seen what humanity could do. They did not want to be the next example. On Earth, Daesung recovered slowly. The physical wounds healed faster than the psychological ones. He spent months in therapy, working with Dr. Yuna to process the trauma of his captivity. They met in a quiet office overlooking the ocean. Yuna was patient, never pushing too hard. She helped him talk about the pain, the fear, the moments when he thought he would die alone in that cell. But she also noticed something remarkable. Despite everything he endured, Dae-sung harbored no desire for revenge. He did not hate the Vrelthians. He pitied them. They were afraid, he told her one day. They saw humanity's potential, and it terrified them. They thought if they studied us, controlled us, they could prevent something terrible. And of that, instead, they created it, Yuna said. Yes, they made humanity angry. That was their mistake. 6 months after the rescue, Dae-sung was well enough to return to service. But he did not want to be a diplomat anymore. He had seen enough of First Contact. Instead, he joined the outreach program, working with alien refugees and helping species displaced by the war. One day, he met a group of Vrelthian children. Their parents had been killed in the fighting. They had nowhere to go. When they saw Dae-sung, they cowered in fear. They expected him to hurt them. Instead, he knelt down to their level. He smiled gently. "I know your people hurt me," he said through a translator. "But you did not. You are children. You deserve a chance to grow up in peace." He arranged for them to be placed with families willing to adopt alien children. He checked on them regularly. Some on Earth saw this as weakness, caring for the enemy's offspring, but Dae-sung knew better. Humanity's strength was not in hatred. It was in the ability to distinguish between enemies and innocents. Admiral Hae-won continued to lead the Earth Defense Fleet. But she was different now. Harder. She had seen what humanity could become when pushed. Part of her was proud. They had rescued her brother against impossible odds. They had proven that humanity could not be bullied. But part of her was frightened. The fury they had unleashed, the destruction they had caused, it was staggering. 17,000 human service members dead. Hundreds of thousands of aliens killed. Entire systems left in ruins. She stood one evening at the observation deck of the rebuilt orbital station above Earth. Dae-sung joined her, walking without his cane for the first time in weeks. "Do you regret it?" he asked. "The war, the deaths, all of it," Hae-won considered for a long moment. The stars looked the same as they always had. Beautiful, peaceful. But she knew now what lay among those stars. Species that feared humanity. Species that hated them. Species that would never forget what Earth had done. "No," she finally said. "I don't regret it. Because the alternative was accepting that human lives are disposable. That we should bow to threats. That we should abandon our own to save ourselves. And that is something humanity will never accept. They fear us now. Good. Let them fear. But more importantly, let them understand. Humanity protects its own. Always." Dae-sung looked out at Earth rotating below. The blue and green planet that had moved stars to bring him home. People who gave their lives because he was human, and humans did not abandon their own. "What do we do now?" he asked. "We rebuild. We grow. We continue exploring the galaxy. But we do it on our terms, with our dignity intact. The galaxy knows now what we are capable of. They will not make the same mistake twice." Across the galaxy, the message had been received and understood. The young species from Seoul, the ones who achieved faster than light travel only 15 years ago, were not to be underestimated. They were not the most technologically advanced. They were not the most numerous. They were not the oldest, but they were the most relentless. They were the ones who would burn a galaxy to protect one of their own. They were the ones who turned entire fleets into weapons. They were the ones who rewrote the rules of war and made the galaxy tremble. In the years that followed, no human was ever captured by an alien species again. The Dae-sung Protocol worked, not because it was enforced, but because everyone remembered what happened the one time someone broke it. Children across 100 worlds grew up hearing stories about the Black Citadel, about the fleet that crossed the galaxy. about the species that valued a single life enough to risk everything. And every time a human ship arrived at a port, every time a human diplomat entered a negotiation, every time a human explorer landed on a new world, the locals remembered one simple truth: humanity does not forget. Humanity does not forgive. And humanity never abandons its own. This was the price of making an enemy of Earth. This was the cost of learning what humanity truly meant. The galaxy had been burned. Now it remembered the flames.